The following program is an original MCM production for Community Channel 14.
The following program is one of a series of programs on money and investing presented by the Milwaukee Public Library. This program is made possible by a grant from the FINRA Investor Education Foundation through Smart Investing at Your Library, a partnership with the American Library Association. Your library is a good source for safe and reliable investment information.
Hi, my name is Anna Walls, and I'm a librarian at the Milwaukee Public Library. I work in the Business and Science Department, and one of the things that we get asked about often is ways to earn money, ways to spend money, ways to save money, and that's what we'd like to talk about today. My guest is Stacy Zielinski. Stacy is a business owner, a financial consultant, and most importantly, she's the coordinator of Wisconsin Saves. It's a campaign that aims at helping people to build wealth and decrease debt. So, Stacy, I'd like to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being here.
Well, I'm looking forward to learning a lot, both for myself and our audience. I'd like to start out with a simple question. Well, I think it's simple, and that would be, what are the advantages of having a spending and savings plan?
Well, I think that is one of the most important questions to ask yourself, because you have to be motivated in order to start saving and start spending correctly. I think a lot of the advantages have to do with being a little bit less stressful about money. First of all, you're able to really stop yourself from living paycheck to paycheck, which I think is a big problem today. And so by having that plan in place, it allows you to get out of that cycle.
Well, that definitely sounds good to me, especially the not living paycheck to paycheck part. But
yes.
How does someone even go about developing a plan? I mean, it sounds great. It sounds like I want to run out and do it, but where do I start?
Exactly, and all you have to do really is, it's a very simple process. The first thing is you want to take a look at all of the income that is coming into your household. It can include more than just yourself. It might be your partner, it might be any other adults that contribute to bills that come into the house. So you take a look at all your expenses after you figure out your income, determine the difference between your income and your expenses. You then plan ahead to budget for what you have spent and look ahead to the future to see how that might change. And you just keep reviewing those things, because your income always changes, expenses always change. And so by reviewing that, that's basically the whole process, is going through and looking at what's coming in, what's going out, and how it changes.
Okay.
And keeping track of it, really.
Okay. And for income, for those of us who are working, fortunate to have a job in that age range, that is a definite source of income. Are there any other sorts of income that you would want to look at besides just a paycheck?
Yes, that's a great question. Besides just normal income, you might, some people have access to government help, maybe by energy assistance, any kind of monetary programs that people might be involved in. There's Social Security, there's pensions, there's child support, there's alimony. There's also, if you have any investments already in place, there might be some dividends or interest that you're getting off of those as well. So all of those things can count towards income. And when you have a lot of people in the house, that can add up to a lot of different areas where the money's coming from. So.
Okay,
yes.
So add up all the incomes.
Yes.
Okay, so the money coming in a way, I'm kind of guessing that might be the easy part of the equation to figure out. Maybe a little easier than figuring out where the money goes.
Exactly, usually it is the easiest.
Yeah, so what is the best way to figure out where the money goes?
Where's the money going?
Because I often say, where did the money go?
Yes,
yeah.
And one day you had $20 in your purse, and the next day you have 25 cents.
Exactly.
So I think that it really is a personal choice, and you have to really find what you're comfortable with doing, but you have a couple options. One way is just to keep all of the receipts. So if you go get gas, if you go get an ice cream, whatever it is you spend money on, keep all of those receipts in one folder. That way, at the end of the week, which I recommend that you do, is looking at your expenses weekly. You have everything in one place, and you can then assess what you've been spending on. So keeping receipts. A second choice is to either kind of the same thing, but just recording it in a way. So you can either use a computer program. A lot of people have spreadsheets that they like to plug into. There are a lot of great programs out there that you can find at the library probably too, that there would be access to just plugging in your numbers, again, where did you spend your money? Put it into that program, or just use a notebook. So those are the two main methods, I would say, just keeping receipts or recording it in a place that you won't lose it. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the notebook too, because I was just thinking of some of the things we don't get receipts for necessarily, like the vending machine. And
Yes.
I mean, I know it probably doesn't sound like much to throw $1 in a vending machine, but I guess if you do
It
it
is.
5 times a day.
Exactly, and that's a really good point to bring up, because when you're spending 50 cents a day on soda, or even 75 cents, that adds up to dollars a week, which adds up to possibly $20 a month. And when you're looking at monthly expenses, $20 could help you pay an energy bill if necessary. So it is important, and that's a really good point that you brought up.
Yeah, I'm kind of guessing this probably goes person to person, but I bet that's one of the hardest parts of starting this whole plan, is really
Yes,
getting
it is,
track of where you're spending your money.
Exactly.
Now, I've heard people talk about variable expenses versus fixed expenses. Could you talk a little bit about what we mean by those terms?
Yes. Two things when you're looking at your spending plan. We talked about income and then expenses. There's two basic types of expenses that we look at. The first one is fixed, being things that they occur at the same time every month. You can't change the amount that you have to pay. So this would be like your rent, your car payments, your mortgage if you have one, those types of things that you really don't have any control over. They just come and you have to pay them. The other type is variable expenses, where that's where we have a lot of control over. So a lot of times when I sit down with people, I see the variable expenses kind of fluctuate a lot, such as entertainment. Where do you go? Do you go see movies? Do you go out to eat? If you're doing those things rather often, those are things we can control and cut down on. Spending money on clothes and shopping, those types of things all are things that we can take a look at and say, you know what, I spent a little bit much here this month, maybe next month I can scale it back a little bit. So those are the big differences, is what you have control over and how you adjust it. So.
So even something that's a necessity of life, like groceries or your heating bill even, might be considered variables because you do have some control over those?
It is. That's always a gray area when I sit down with people, because a lot of times people are on a budget plan for heat and all those types of bills. If you're not, it would unfortunately be a variable that you can only control so much, because you have to take a shower and you have to have heat and you have to have a light. However, if you walk through your house and all the lights are on, that might be an indicator that you could control that a little bit more. As far as groceries go, I do think that it's variable, but you can also regulate the control on that by shopping with a list and knowing how much you're going to spend and how much you have to spend before you go to the store.
So that really works.
It works.
And not
It
shopping
works.
while you're hungry?
Yes.
Because
That's
Guilty
it.
of that.
Yes, exactly.
You've already talked about some ways of being more careful with your money. Maybe taking the list to the grocery store, getting on the budget plan. I suppose that's kind of a good way to do it too, as far as your utilities go. Any other, there's probably a lot of different ways to be careful with your money, but can you think of some examples?
Oh, sure. I think the biggest thing that you can do is really, and it comes down to what you just talked about, you really need to determine what are your wants versus your needs, first and foremost. And so when you look at your spending, there are things you need to have and there are things you want to have. And I think often we convince ourselves that we need to have something when really we just want it. I think that's the biggest thing, the most important thing when you're looking at being smart, is just realizing what you really need versus what you want. And taking the time then to, when you go out and look for those things, to shop wisely. Comparison shop is a huge thing that you can do. You don't always need to buy the name brand at the store, because it doesn't always mean better quality. And I know that's really important sometimes, but it does make a lot of money when it comes to looking at your wallet. So in addition to evaluating your wants versus needs, setting goals is another good way to cut down on your expenses. Again, once you have something in sight and you know what you're working towards, it makes you more conscious of what you're spending your money on. So when you go to the store and you have set the goal of saving $50 this month and you've only saved $30, you're going to think twice about buying that extra pair of jeans or an extra pair of shoes just because they're on sale. And I think that setting goals is just a really good way to keep that in, keep your spending in check.